Welcome to Life Stories, where the truth we hide can change everything. What would you do if the people who raised you, praised you, and promised you the world, quietly gave it all to someone else? Today's story is about a woman who sacrificed everything for her family's legacy. 10 years of grinding, of missed birthdays, of building something she believed was hers. Until one Friday afternoon, a single document shattered everything. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about identity, power, and the moment you stop begging to be seen, and demand to be respected. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or betrayed by the people closest to you, the story will hit deeper than you expect. Let's go back to where it all began. It started, like most heartbreaks, on a perfectly ordinary day. I gave Clark & Sons Construction everything. 10 years. Over 500 weekends. 80-hour work weeks stacked like concrete blocks on the ruins of my personal life. While my friends were getting married or drinking Aperol spritzes in Italy, I was redlining blueprints and chasing suppliers through thunderstorms. I didn't complain. I didn't ask for praise. I just believed blindly, naively, that my father's promises were as solid as the foundations we poured. He used to say, "Madison, this company will be yours one day. You've got the Clark blood in your bones." I believed him more than I believed in birthdays or gravity. And then one Friday afternoon in late September, while looking for a contract in our reorganized archives, a disaster born of my sister Brooke's latest modernization spree, I found it. A manila folder. Thick. Misfiled. Labeled Clark & Sons, ownership transfer. I almost didn't open it. I wanted to believe it was old, something from when my grandfather passed the company to Dad. But the date stopped me cold. March 15th, 6 months ago. My pulse quickened. The room warped, bright and tight, like the air had been sucked out. I skimmed page after page, but one line screamed louder than the rest: "Hereby transfers 75% ownership to Brooke Elizabeth Clark." My name? Absent. Erased. I stood there stone still, like someone had just pulled the earth out from under me. Brooke, the part-time creative director who waltzed in 2 years ago with zero experience and endless opinions, now owned the majority of the company I had built with my own damn exhaustion. "Madison," a voice asked behind me. It was Margaret Maggie, our office manager since I was 6. She saw the folder in my hand and her expression faltered. "You knew," I whispered. She looked away. That was answer enough. "I was the last to know," I said. Silence. The kind that confirms everything. I didn't cry. Not then. I just walked out. I didn't take my laptop or the project files on my desk. I didn't even log out. I just walked, folder clutched to my chest like a bomb ticking down to the moment it would blow up everything I believed about my family. At home, the silence was deafening. My apartment, barely lived in, felt like a waiting room between work crises. I sat on the couch, clutching the folder, staring at a blank wall. There were no family photos. No framed degrees. Just space and now, a void. Had I been blind? Or just conveniently obedient? By midnight, I'd read the contract 3 times. The signatures were fresh. Dad. Mom. Brooke. Witnessed. Notarized. I called Lauren, my best friend since college. "I gave them everything," I said. And they gave it to her. When she arrived 30 minutes later, she found me curled up on the floor, papers scattered like debris from an emotional wreck. "You're not going back," she said firmly, after reading the first page. "I have to," I said. "They need me." She looked at me, eyes blazing. "No, they used you. There's a difference." The next morning, I didn't show up to the office. Or the morning after that. 1 week later, Dad called, panicked. Madison, we're about to lose the Whitman contract. Greg asked for you. Brooke doesn't have the numbers ready, and I need you in. I cut him off. Let Brooke handle it, I said. The pause on the other end wasn't just silence. It was the sound of a power shift. That's when I realized something important. They hadn't just betrayed me. They underestimated me. What would you do if the people who raised you quietly erased your name from everything you helped build? Could you walk away from your life's work, or would you fight for the respect you were denied? The betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my reckoning. And in part 2, they're about to learn what happens when the workhorse stops running. My alarm still went off at 5:30 a.m. the following Monday, like it had every day for the past 10 years. For a fleeting moment, I reached for my phone, muscle memory pulling me back into a life I no longer lived. Then it hit me. I had nowhere to be. No reports to file. No fires to put out. No reason to skip breakfast. I didn't know what to do with that kind of freedom. By 6:15, I was pacing my living room, dressed in yoga pants and a hoodie I hadn't worn since college. I made coffee, didn't drink it. I opened my laptop, stared at my inbox, and shut it again. It was like grief. The death of a version of myself I didn't know how to bury. That afternoon, I called Ethan Monroe, my college mentor who now ran Ashbridge Group, Clark & Son's fiercest competitor. He picked up on the second ring. I was wondering how long it would take, he said, like he'd been expecting my call for years. We met for lunch the next day at a quiet restaurant across town. I told him everything. The betrayal. The silence. The file folder that changed my life. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he said, "You've been the backbone of Clark & Sons for a decade. You didn't lose a company, you freed yourself from a prison you didn't even realize you were in. Then why does it still feel like I'm the one who failed?" I asked, voice low. He leaned forward. Because when the people you love betray you, it's not just a business loss, it's a personal apocalypse. He offered me a position. Operations director. Competitive salary. Path to partnership. Full creative control. It was everything I'd worked for and more than my family ever offered. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. 3 days passed. No word from Dad. No apology. Just silence and a few pathetic texts from Brooke about sorting things out and staying sisters. Then the phone rang. "Madison," Dad barked. "Greg Whitman's pulling out. That's $12 million off the books if we don't fix this. You need to come in today." There it was. Not please. Not we're sorry. Just you need to. Let Brooke fix it, I said coolly. She's the majority owner, right? You're playing a dangerous game, he warned. This isn't just business, it's family legacy. That legacy was signed away 6 months ago, I replied. Without me. I ended the call before he could say more. That evening, I received a knock on my apartment door. Brooke stood outside, her hair windblown, her eyes red. "Can we talk?" she asked. I let her in. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to hear the lies out loud. She sat on my couch like it was a confession booth. "I didn't know what Dad was doing," she said. "Not at first. He told me you were too valuable in operations to risk moving into ownership. That it was temporary. That you'd understand." I stared at her. "And when you signed the papers?" She winced. "I told myself you didn't want that kind of responsibility. That you were too burned out. I wanted to believe it wasn't betrayal. But it was," I said flatly. She didn't deny it. We sat in silence for a long time before she whispered, "I'm drowning, Mads. I don't know what I'm doing. The contractors don't respect me. Clients want you. I read your Anderson bid notes and I didn't even understand half the terms." "Maybe you should have thought about that before signing on as CEO," I said, but something in her vulnerability twisted in my chest. She was my sister. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I hated her or pitied her more. Have you ever felt torn between justice and forgiveness, between protecting your worth and salvaging what's left of a relationship? The next morning, I made a decision that would force my father to face everything he refused to see, and it started with walking into the one place I swore I'd never return. Don't miss what happens next. The moment I walked into the Clark & Sons lobby, everything felt smaller. Not physically, the office was still the same two-story space I helped design, still smelled faintly of cedar and fresh coffee, but smaller in a spiritual sense. Like it no longer fit me. Or maybe, for the first time, I could finally see how much I'd outgrown it. The receptionist, a new hire I didn't recognize, gave me a startled smile. "Can I help you?" "I'm Madison Clark," I said. My voice was even, steady. "I'm here to speak with Charles Clark and Brooke Clark. I believe they're expecting me." She stammered something and picked up the phone. 30 seconds later, Brooke appeared at the top of the stairs, pale and anxious. "Mads," she started. I held up a hand. "Let's not do this in the hallway." We walked in silence to the boardroom. Dad was already there, flanked by Harold Peterson, our longtime family attorney. He looked older. Tired. Not just from the sleepless week I'd given him, but from the weight of realizing the empire he'd tried to control was collapsing without its foundation, me. "Thank you for coming," he said gruffly. "I didn't come for you," I replied, sitting across from him. "I came for me." He bristled, but said nothing. Harold opened a folder. "Charles and Brooke would like to discuss a proposal. Ownership restructuring. New leadership titles. An adjusted board structure." I leaned back, folding my arms. "I'm listening." Dad cleared his throat. "We're prepared to offer you Chief Operating Officer. Full control over day-to-day operations. Brooke retains CEO, but major decisions require joint approval. And..." He glanced at Harold. "A 35% equity stake, transferred from Brooke's share," Harold continued. "She maintains 40%, your parents retain the remaining 25%. Equal board voting rights for both you and Brooke." I looked at Brooke. She was twisting a pen between her fingers, eyes lowered. "I never wanted this much control," she said softly. "I just wanted to matter. And I thought having ownership meant I finally did." For a moment, something in me softened. I understood that ache. That desperate hunger to be seen. But I'd spent a decade earning what she was handed. "And what happens when I disagree with your vision?" I asked. "Then we compromise," she said, meeting my gaze. "Or we learn how to." The old me would have scoffed. Walked away. Burned the place to the ground. But the new me, the one who had walked through fire and come out steel, saw something else, possibility. Not just for justice. For healing. I nodded slowly. "I have conditions." Dad started to speak, but I didn't give him the chance. 1. No more 60-hour weeks. Executives cap at 45. We implement mandatory vacation time and enforce boundaries for staff. Burnout isn't a badge of honor anymore. Agreed, Brooke said before Dad could protest. 2. We rebuild the culture. No more gatekeeping ideas. No more backroom decisions. I want transparency. Collaboration. Respect. Harold scribbled furiously. Dad clenched his jaw but nodded. And 3, I said quietly, looking directly at my father, you say it? Out loud. What you did. The room went still. Charles Clark had commanded boardrooms across the country, out-negotiated CEOs twice his age, and built a company from nothing. But in this moment, in this room, he looked like just a man flawed, stubborn, and deeply human. I was wrong, he said finally, his voice gravel. You deserved more. I let fear cloud my judgment. I thought I was protecting the company. But all I did was betray the person who built it. I exhaled. Not because it fixed everything. But because it was something. I'll stay, I said. But I'm not coming back to play the same role. I'm building a new one. A week later, the documents were signed. The press release drafted. Internally, we announced the leadership restructure. Externally, we reframed it as a strategic pivot. Clients stayed. Some even applauded the shift. Greg Whitman called me directly to say, about damn time. But the biggest change wasn't in titles or press statements. It was in the office itself. We knocked down the old CEO corner suite and built a shared executive workspace. Glass walls. Open doors. Natural light. No more thrones, no more shadows. Brooke took over marketing and client relations, her natural strengths. I focused on systems, strategy, and execution, mine. We didn't always agree. But for once, we didn't avoid the hard conversations. We faced them. Together. One Friday afternoon, months later, I found an old family photo tucked behind a cabinet taken during the company's 25th anniversary. We were all smiling then. Dad, Mom, Brooke, me. Back when we still believed love could protect us from everything. I framed it again. But this time, I placed it in the office's shared entryway, not as a tribute to the past, but as a reminder, legacies aren't given. They're forged. Sometimes painfully. I still don't know if my family and I will ever go back to what we once were. Maybe that version of us never really existed. But we're building something new now, flawed, honest, and finally real. And for the first time in years, I'm not surviving. I'm living. What part of this story resonated with you the most? Have you ever had to rebuild your identity after betrayal? Comment 100 if you felt this story was powerful. Let us know where you're watching from. What country are you in? Share this video with a friend who might need a reminder that knowing your worth isn't selfish, it's survival. Thank you for watching Life Stories.